thanks for returning once again to Women Like Us Mentors channel. And this is our season 2 and episode 6. And so, well into our halftime mode of season 2. And I wanted to welcome those who are returning, but also the net new people that are out there being able to kind of come into the channel, listen to this different topics, and really put your inspiration around what the next topic should be. So we have a real riveting, I think, example of a topic, because as the pandemic had started, I kept thinking to myself, how much time are we spending during this pandemic really reflecting on ourselves? And I think I could speak for all of the speakers as well as you, the audience, that it really gave us some moments of time on ourselves, doing an introspect, and also taking a look at our life's purpose. And so I thought, what a great topic to think about in terms of another episode, which is reinventing yourself and or your career. As you all may know in the panelists, that we have this phenomenon going on in the global marketplace called the Great Resignation. And that's happening everywhere, right? It is a matter of people kind of saying, this isn't really important enough for me to get up and go into a workplace that I don't have any passion and interest, and I want to pivot, and I want to redefine somewhat who I am and or what I do, and really put some effort into squeezing more of the purpose-driven life in there versus living to work. With that, I wanted to introduce a real diverse and expansive panel of guest speakers. And some of you have seen some of our guest panelists return, but we have also some new speakers. We have representation from Canada, US, Dubai, and Sarajevo today. And so I wanted to introduce the guest panelists, and we'll start with Erica.
Thanks for having me on. It's a great pleasure to be here. I am a writer, mom, wife, a creative individual, creator. And so when I think about some of the things that have been pivotal moments in my life, it's a very interesting question, because you made me have to kind of look at my life and really pinpoint the moments. And I had never really done that. As a writer, I've done that kind of like for other people, writing their bios and interviewing. But for myself, I hadn't really thought about it in that way. So it was actually a very good exercise. So for me, just a couple things. Moving from Toledo, Ohio to New York at 18 to pursue modeling was a big moment in my life, and really set forth a path. So that was a big deal for me. Let's see, getting married was a big deal for me. I got married at, oh gosh, I was, you know what? I'm so terrible, but 17 years ago, and I turned 51 tomorrow. So, and let's see, another just big moment was just becoming a writer. I was writing, and then I left writing and left a lot of things. I quit modeling, I was acting, I quit a lot of things. And then I decided to pick writing back up. And it was a really big moment, because I had to just really try something that I loved again after being really burnt and burned out. So anyway, those are just a few of the moments. And then obviously like having kids as well. So those have been some of the biggest decisions in my life, and the things that stick out the most.
Miigwech. My name is Gagabshi. I'm from the Sachico Lake First Nation, and my name means little horned owl. A little bit about myself is, so I was born and raised in Thunder Bay, Ontario. It's the head of Lake Superior. It's a really small town, and just from a very young age, I've had some really big spiritual experiences. At age 12, I was struck by lightning, and that's a huge initiation in Native culture. So that is something that I've carried with me, but I had a lot of fear around it, and so I repressed it for many, many years. And so with that came a lot of responsibility and a lot of gifts. And so as a young person, I wasn't ready to step into that role. So I really suppressed it. And so when I was 18, I ran away from Thunder Bay because I had this awakening even so early. It was like, who am I? Like, who am I as a human in this, like, this suit? And I just would look at myself in the mirror and I would cry because I didn't know who I was, who my spirit was, and why I was here, like, on earth. And a lot of traveling. I've experienced many cultures all across Canada and in the world, speaking with different medicine people and shamans to really, create a foundation for my growth. And so at 18, just leaving my hometown on my own to find out who I was a really huge step. And it took a lot of bravery. But with that, I had a lot of confusion. So I struggled with different, like with alcohol, to really suppress the sensitivities that I had and to numb out all that I was feeling, because um, I didn't have the tools to kind of maneuver what I could see in the world and what I saw in people. And so for me, using those, going to that side of the, like, going that way, going in that direction with alcohol and addiction, it wasn't the darkest, like, I wasn't an alcoholic, but I still repressed quite a bit. And so coming out of that into the healing and living sober and finding balance, that was a really huge part of my life. And having a child and becoming a single parent at 26 really solidified that I had this was a big reason to live and to support another human. And that was one of the greatest gifts of my life, was to become a single mother. Following that, I got into a relationship when I was 28 with a man in California. He owned a holistic healing retreat. And so that was really up my alley. And I just dove into that, started getting really into the energy work and Reiki, and focusing all my energy and all my manifesting gifts to build this amazing big retreat. We even have a retreat center in Mexico that we built together. And then he passed away last April, so it hasn't even been a year. And that really kind of redefined what I want to do, because before it felt like I was doing it for him and our business and our family. But now I'm at the point where it's like, what do I want to do for myself? And right now I'm pursuing the arts in Santa Fe. And so I'm becoming an artist. But I'm also actually being initiated while I'm in Canada to the Grand Medicine Society. Yeah, so I'm really excited for that.
My name is Nicole. I currently live in Sarajevo, which is in Bosnia Herzegovina. And I am here because I was going through the same thing. I think this opportunity to redefine myself and my place in the world. And I did that in the same way I think that I've moved through other changes in my life. I did it by going through a process of discovery and uncovering and really exploring some questions about myself that I'd never really answered before. And I have felt, I think, probably similar to Gagapshi, that there's always been a through line since I was pretty young. And I think my most significant memory, Esther, to answer your question, was when I was 22. I sat down and spent basically a month just reflecting, writing, really defining what I think has became my life's purpose, and really finding ways then in almost everything I did over those past, years, to continue to live through that vision and really explore what purpose means in different contexts, in different countries, through different jobs, through different partners, through different iterations of my life, including becoming a parent.
So my name is Trish, and I live in Toronto, Canada. And basically, I guess I could say one of my first pivotal moments was, after graduating from university and working in finance, um, deciding to pursue a completely different career, studying massage therapy. So similar to Kagapshi, it was something that I'd always been interested in. I was athletic in high school, and I'd suffered several injuries, and I had basically received massage therapy. And it was always something that stuck with me, and it was, something that I actually did a little bit as a bit of a hobby. I would massage my family members and my friends, obviously not knowing any proper techniques, but it's just something that I enjoyed doing, and I used to get really good feedback. And I just remember having this moment of thinking, I want to try it. I want to see if I can do this. And basically, I studied massage therapy. I became a massage therapist. I basically worked as a massage therapist for several years, and then I actually ended up having some issues with my fingers and my joints and developing arthritis, and even though we're taught how to properly self care and take care of our bodies and make sure we're not doing anything that would injure ourselves. um, it did take a toll on me, and I decided to pivot right back into the corporate world, which is where I am today. But it's something that is always in the back of my mind, as something that who knows what the future could hold. I might, who knows, maybe in retirement might be something I might get back into. But for now, I am happy, being where I am in the corporate world. And I guess another pivotal point for me, unlike most of my peers, is I decided not to have children. I did get married to my husband, who I've been with now for 25 years. This year will be 25 years. And I think around age 35, we decided, let's try. And we did try. And we were not able to conceive naturally. So, being presented with, fertility options and surrogacy and adoption, we decided, if this wasn't going to happen naturally, we weren't going to have children. And I have to say that, for us, actually, it worked out to be the best decision for us. So, yeah, that was it ended up being a conscious decision or intentional decision after all, and it worked out.
This question was actually very interesting, as Erica mentioned. I've never thought about this question. I actually learned a lot about myself when I was going through, my notes and I was making all the notes. It made me realize what are the most important phases of my life. So it was very interesting for me. So the pivotal moments of my life, firstly, I feel when I decided to choose a STEM career path. This was in 1999 when I wanted to get into IT, and no one had even heard of information technology. I remember majority of the universities, they were offering degrees, undergrad in computer science. And IT was unheard of. There were very few universities at the time who were offering IT. And I did not know any other girl who was in the technical field. I couldn't take advice from anyone. And it was, for me, it was a big risk, but I knew this is my passion. This is what I want to do. And so I went for it. So I was raised in Kuwait my entire life. I'm originally Pakistani, but I was raised in Kuwait my entire life. And for undergrad, I went to Toronto, and there I did my undergrad in IT. Another pivotal moment was when I got accepted to IBM. It was my dream job. And I had to go through a number of grueling interviews and online aptitude tests, and it was horrifying, but I finally got in. I was told that there were only 110 candidates and they were going to pick two because there were only two positions open. So I was very excited when I got it, and I felt very proud. I felt very lucky. Also, one thing that worked out for me was that there was a software that I was studying in university, and that the company that made that software was actually bought by IBM. So what happened was when I joined IBM, I had joined as an intern, but I think after a month or so, I started taking on responsibilities as a full-time employee because I already knew the software, and IBM had recently acquired that company, so not many people knew about the software within the company as well. So that worked out to be great. I did very well. I was pushed to do more and more, and it was an amazing experience. Another pivotal moment was when I had decided to move back to back to the Middle East from Toronto. If I look back, obviously, you shouldn't see anything as a mistake. Everything is an experience. Everything is a learning experience. But if I could go back in time, I would not have moved. I would have probably stayed in Canada. Yeah, that's the truth. I know, Esther, I see that grin. Yeah, but I mean, I'm happy. But career-wise, I felt it wasn't a good move for me. The rest, everything is great, but not career-wise. I had high expectations from Dubai, and it did not. My workplace did not meet those expectations, so I was a bit disheartened. And then, lastly, now I think my pivotal moment is that I'm planning to go back to school in September, and I'm very, very excited about that to pursue my master's. And I'm doing my master's in IT again. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Ladies and the audience out there, as you can see, we have such a diverse, really prominent women that have made some conscious and unconscious decisions for themselves. And I wanted the audience to realize, because many of you who are younger generations, whether you're millennial, you're Gen Z, or even those who are tuning in with their moms or dads, I know that there's a number of you out there who are under 12, who we are calling the iGen or Alpha Gen. And this is extremely important to understand that there's some circumstances that you can control. We didn't all control the pandemic. And so during these moments where you have this scrambled head of, am I going to be able to finish school on time because of the pandemic? Or am I really interested in this subject that I'm taking or the program that I'm taking? I know a lot of you have mentioned that it is a time of moment for pause because you may not have made the decisions that you wanted to. Maybe it was enforced by your parents or encouraged by people who are your mentors, and it wasn't your own decision. So a lot of this discussion today is around really pausing and looking at the experiences of the panel and also reflecting on your life and making some conscious decisions of where you want to pivot. And not to say that you're going to change anything in your current direction, but it's okay to make those changes. And so if I can turn to the panel and ask you, how do you really process and define your purpose in life or your purpose driven life?
For myself, so coming back into, so right now becoming the healer that I hope to become, that I'm growing into, not when I was going against the flow, against that, that's when I found out in my life where I was coming up to the most challenges. So my purpose always was kind of with me and it guided me. So I'm an artist. And so my creative channel is when it's open and I'm in the flow, then I'm creating really beautiful pieces. But when I get into my head or I'm just more thinking about the future and I'm really trying to analyze what I'm doing or kind of putting my own take on it, that's when I can see I've made mistakes and it doesn't look like I'm in the flow of what I'm creating. And so I have to let inspiration move me. That has been a huge teacher and a big piece of wisdom that I've gained in my life. So when I was 27, I came back to live with my parents and stay with them when I had my child, my son. And my parents were really pressuring me to, go back to school. You should be in university. You've been living this wild life in BC. And like, I wanted to be a winemaker essentially, and I was studying for that. And then I got pregnant and that my whole vision of life changed. And so I came back to be with my parents to kind of like reconfigure what I wanted to do with my life. And so I was listening to my mom, and there was a really good Native American nursing program. And I applied and I got accepted. I even had full funding. I had scholarships. Everything was set up. And 3 weeks before I could have started school, there was something weighing on me. And I just knew this was not the right path. It was just some really big piece of me that didn't want to be here, didn't want to take this program. And so I dropped out and I ended up going to California to do some holistic healing on myself because I had some traumas that I needed to address. And those were really coming up and really important for me. And I was having visions and dreams that this was not where I was supposed to be. And that was the best decision, was to really listen to my heart. And that's been my guiding tool.
I know probably all of you well enough to know that you'd like to somewhat control where your direction in life is. A lot of people don't like to kind of leave it to the wind. And so I think it's really important for the audience to understand part of that growth and purpose driven life also morphs over time, and that there's some fluid nature on where you need to be a little bit loose on where that path takes
I
you.
want to start out by thanking Gagabshi for just bringing such honest reflection to this process, because so often it's easy to answer questions like this from a purely cognitive place, just from, well, then I made this decision, that I did this. But your reflection really offers a lot of insight into the value of taking time to think, to feel, like to not think, to actually feel and really understand in your gut and in your heart what's going on, and then make a decision from that place, which I really, really respect. And that's something that as a parent, I am working to encourage my daughters to do, because especially as women, so often we are told what to do, right? We are told and encouraged, and this is would be best for everybody else if you did X, right? If you went to school, if you lived here, if you did, and that's not necessarily the narrative that men have. Go explore, discover, figure things out, and it's really refreshing to hear someone say that they took the time to reflect and make what obviously turned out to be the right decision. I've always thought about purpose as like a road or a pathway, and I also think about joy as a road or a pathway. For me, where those two roads come together and become one, where they intersect and interconnect, that for me that's the fuel for me. That's the thing that tells me that I'm in the right place, that I'm able to do work that speaks to, I think, like Gagab, she said, sort of what inspires me and what makes me feel like it's easy to do. So even if I have to make a change, it's the right change. I'm going in the direction of something that is calling me, but it's also something that brings me, peace and joy. It feels like the right place to be. It doesn't mean it's always easy. It's not always a smooth road, but it is where I know I need to be, because there's some broader reward that I get from it that is not, I guess, aligned with what's in my bank account. It doesn't align with what society is telling me I should be doing. It definitely always doesn't align, logically or rationally. But when all of these things come together, it feels like it is the right answer. And that's my guide, understanding where purpose and joy intersect.
And we shouldn't be shy about wanting joy and fulfillment in our life. And even though many of you are parents, you also need to look after yourself. And so it's a matter of finding that true North Star, as some of our panels have discovered before, is what is that true North Star for myself, Nicole, the fact that you're even here on this platform giving back says something about yourself, and that nothing is just driven by monetary reasons. And so that intention of give back is a big theme in my life. And one of the reasons I put this platform, because it wasn't to have a million hits to compete with the cat viral video. It was to really get to the MBA mentee cohort that I had, the nieces and nephews that wanted to understand how to look at life, and that they didn't want to go to their parents to ask for that spiel, to go to their cool Auntie Esther, and how better to do that in a one to many perspective than to have a platform like this to share. And so that is really important, Nicole, that we have not only fluidity in our lives, but the ability to kind of look at what gives us joy and passion to define our purpose in
I'm
life.
going to add something what Nicole had mentioned, which is very important about peace. You need to feel peace. You should be able to sleep peacefully at night. That's very, very important. And so, specifically for me, what gives me peace is when I'm helping someone, when I'm making a positive impact in someone's life. So, I'm talking about charity here, philanthropy work. Like Esther, I know you are running an orphanage in Egypt. So, what I have done is I actually financially support a number of children in Pakistan. And I help them get through school. Some of them are in grade 12, some are in grade 9, grade 10. So I've come across their parents and they've asked me for assistance and I financially help them. And, when I get audio messages back from their moms and from them crying and they're just so full of joy, it makes me so happy that I was able to provide for them. So that is something that's very, very important for me, that how my decisions are impacting other people's lives. So charity work for me is number one. That is something that I take very, very seriously because not only am I helping others, but then it brings me a lot of peace as well. So for me, purpose of life is not just doing your 9 to 5 job and accumulating all your wealth in your account. You need to give back as well. So if you're fortunate enough to earn that wealth, it's your responsibility to distribute it as well amongst the people who are unable to afford it.
Because there was a moment in time that I had a discussion with a coworker and again didn't necessarily look at world perspectives that much. And I know this for a fact because when I had told him, you realize when you realize that you're the upper echelon, you're the 5% in the world's community that are making 6 digits and up, then you have an accountability, knowing that 90% of the world is making less than $5 a day.
A quick correction on my part, that approximately 90% of the global population live off less than $5 a day, and yet approximately 25% of the world's population makes an average of less than $5 a day.
Right? You look at these second, third world nations with hundreds of millions of people and take a look at what they're making per day. And it can't be I'm a very analytics person, as a lot of you know. And from a math perspective, it can't be that the 5% are the ones who just grow their wealth and accumulate it and sit on it. If we can't help those that are out there, then for me, my personal perspective was then who's going to do that? It can't be just the Warren Buffett and the Bill Gates. It would have to be all of us inclusive. And he was really thrown back. He said, they make $5, less than $5 a day. I said, yeah, you should kind of take a look at these countries and look at their average income. And so he was really thrown back. And it's that reality moment that we have, as Aisha, you were mentioning, and Nicole, that we have to really kind of think about what areas where we can, as an affluent community, and I believe all of us are in that category, to being able to give back and define that purpose-driven life as part of that.
My purpose, I feel one of my main purposes tends to be wanting to be there for those that I really care for, the most important people in my life, being, if that is being, the best person I can be as far as a friend or a daughter or a wife, and making sure that I'm there for those that are in need, that really need my help, that really need to talk, that really need, support. I find, especially within the last couple of years, I've had some tragedies, losing my father. My sister is battling cancer currently for the last 2 years. I have one of my best friends who's also battling cancer. And, I've had to really take a look at my life and really realize how important the relationships that I have are to me. And it's been quite a journey in the last couple of years, and I just find that it's something that I have made a priority in my life,
Yes.
just to be there for
Yes.
those that are the most important to me, my loved ones especially.
And Trish, you and I have talked about this as well. Caretaking is a huge load, and Nicole has experienced this herself as well. And that we have extended family members and or friends who are either caretakers and or we need to support our ailing parents, and in that degree that our reinvention of our lives really have to take into consideration how we caretake for those around us that need that lifting up, whether it's both financially and or that of our time. And to your point, Aisha, I agree with you. Our desire is always wanting peace, but having to go through that caretaking process, I know I am not a very peaceful person in a lot of cases. And I think a number of you have experienced kind of the raw Esther. And in my worst case scenario, I cannot be the patient person that I want to be. And so understanding you want to have peace at an end state is a great view. It's very hard for me to get there in a lot of cases where I'm also dealing with an ailing parent who is going through early dementia and Alzheimer's. And so that level of patience, it's really hard, especially when you're juggling a number of things. And so I wanted to also ask whether the panelists believe that reinventing yourself and defining your career and or your life, is it really subjective or intentional, or both?
It's intentional. I find most of the decisions that I make in my life tend to be intentional. Absolutely.
Me as well. I would say definitely intentional when I think of reinvention. Usually it comes with making a change, whether it be one example for me, I looked up and I hadn't. Sometimes I look up and I realize I haven't changed my hair in like 10 years. Like for me, the show, the web series that I'm writing, I just wrote and I'm writing, it was really like me always looking at other people that I respect in that realm. TV writing, visual writing, because I've always been more of a essay writer, interviewer, things like that. And so I would be looking at these different women, women of color that I respect and feeling like, wow, on some level, I feel like I can be doing that. Not in a comparison way, but it was just a place that I saw myself, and yet I wasn't living up to my full potential. So anyway, it was really just kind of saying yes to something that is scary and challenging. And usually when I say yes to that really scary thing, reinvention kind of comes with it, because I have to step up, and step into it. And so that's kind of like the reinvention happens for me in the process, I guess, and the saying yes, and then who I become along that path. I was thinking about that question about life purpose, because I realized I was thinking of it as one thing. I think it evolves. For me, it evolves. Like my purpose in one stage of my life can be maybe really focused on my kids or relationship or something. Then as I evolve, that purpose changes. So for me, where I am right now, my life purpose is really becoming about a relationship development with myself, because I realize that's an area in which I have for many years neglected. And it is my biggest relationship, and I haven't been seeing it as such. So that to me, before I leave this planet, I want to engage with me and what I want and how I feel and where I see myself being. Me accepting that I love to work. I love my work. I really love to work. And I think for a long time, I kind of made that mean that I couldn't exist fully in other areas. So it's kind of like a guilt that I had around work and creating. And now I'm saying again, as it relates to myself and what I want and what makes me happy, I just have to be at peace with the fact that I love to just create, and so for me, reinvention and life purpose is about just doing the things that really make me happy, that really get me charged, and being embracing it, just really embracing it. So that for me is life purpose. and reinvention all in one.
Erica, and I appreciate that because I don't know if yourself and or the rest of the panelists know that I'm very intentional on who I choose for the panelists, because you've all inspired me in one way, which is you've pivoted so many times and redefined who you were in your career as you made the decision for family members, whether it's looking after your family or your children. And for me, not having children, always stayed in technology. I felt that, Erica, to your point, I kept in the safe zone, and I wanted you to discuss your experiences so that I can learn for myself. Erica, you've gone from model to that of a writer to now your directorial debut. And I'm thinking, how does she do that? Like, and with a husband and kids and not wanting to stay in the safe zone. And I don't have kids. I'm not married and I've stayed in my safe zone. So is there something wrong with me? And I don't want anyone in the audience to think that that's a bad thing. It's a good thing to explore and really challenge yourselves as to why that's something that you made a decision on. And that's all I'm doing today is privately. This is for me, people. And I wanted to also ask Erica, in your specific question, as we segue to our third question, which is a personalized one. What is the current set of challenges that you face in making that directorial debut for yourself, given your heritage of coming in from a modeling perspective to that of a writer? And how do you defy these new obstacles?
I had to think about that. You had really good questions. I was like, oh my God, Esther is making me think so hard. Back to a little bit about what you said about pivotal decisions. Even me and directing this series that I just created, it happened really in the just what was the smallest decision. It was like being approached to write this show and then deciding if I wanted to say yes or not. And I was really at a moment where I knew I wanted to try something different. I always wanted to make the jump from the writing that I'd been currently doing. And sometimes it's just a little small offer and we see it as maybe being something really little, but it's us that kind of makes it something big. So it can seem like, hey, do you want to work in the supermarket? Hell no, I don't want to work in the supermarket. But maybe that supermarket is like right next door to, I don't know, maybe it's where you need to be at that moment. And then you say yes to it and you're in there and you're meeting all these people and you discover yourself in this realm. And it's like, oh my God, I'm not just a cashier at the supermarket, but you discover something about yourself. So anyway, the show was even me saying yes to something that could have been small, but I stepped in and made it something because of what I'm choosing for myself. I don't know, the noise, when you talk about like the noise, of course, I'm a Black woman, I'm a woman, there's these things that would come with obstacles. But for me, when I'm creating, I'm only thinking about what I want to create. Because if I think about the obstacles, I'm not even going to get started. I cut out all the noise and I think about me as this person that can do anything that I'm choosing in that moment. And I'm not really thinking about who's going to say no to me. I'm not even thinking about no's. I'm not thinking about anything but the project at hand. And it's like, what can I bring to this? It just comes down to kind of like the work ethic and the creativity that I'm bringing to it. And there are sleepless nights, and for the show, I had no clue what I was going to do when I started it. And so many nights I was digging around, like what's next? How do I make this into something? I have an idea, but so it's just a lot of work involved. And for me, again, I'm discovering, like I said, that I love to work. So it's embracing that and just being like, okay, that's kind of like my thing, and so yeah, it's just not about challenges. It's just the creativity. That other stuff comes if it comes. But I feel like if I'm true to myself and I'm just purely doing what makes me happy and what I feel the project needs, nobody's going to say no.
And I like
Who's
that
gonna
attitude.
say no? Somebody's gonna say yes. I don't, somebody's gonna say yes.
And that's been very consistent. I don't know if you know that about yourself. I'm pretty sure Nicole does, having known you the longest and me meeting you through Nicole. And it's that you took to put negativity outside of your own realm, right? It doesn't belong here. That's always been
Yeah.
very consistent with how I know you.
And I will acknowledge hearing you and saying that. For a while, I did hear people like when I was going from modeling to writing. And the thing is, I've written my whole life, but I had started seeing myself as this model, and I thought that's how people perceived me. So when I started writing, I used to look at the other writers like, they don't look at me as a writer. Like they don't. I was thinking about them and how the real writers saw me. And I was caught up in that for a while. So I guess it came with maturity and time that I was able to really kind of like separate myself from people's perceptions of me. It was a road, but I could care less what people think about me today. But that's, I'm 50, gonna be 51 tomorrow. So I'm hoping that, that does come with time. I'm trying to teach that to my girls as they're 9 and 12 to just really care less about what people think. If they can get that early, their lives are going to be so full.
That's the key, Erica, to this channel and our motivation, because the give back was for the context of how do we look at the girls behind us. And again, there's some boys and men channeling in, but how do we give them the essence of what to acknowledge as experience from our lives that could help them? Because we didn't get the luxury, I don't believe, growing up in our era of having mentors, of having social media, of having variances of opinions, and that social economic norm of, yes, you could be different, and yes, you as a girl can do XYZ. We were, as Nicole said, pigeonholed into certain areas. And so as we grew through that challenge, we want to share those challenges and these experiences and how we delved into our own lives, and throw that back to the audience and say, here's what to note. And again, you can make your own decisions as an audience, but it's really good to understand the diverse nature of how we came to be. And so, Erica, thank you for that. The question 3 for Gagapshi, and I made it custom and personalized. As a proud Indigenous artist, how do you manifest who you are in your art? And if you don't mind me sharing one of the art pieces that you have with the audience, then I will on screen. And I wanted to really ask you, how do you face also the challenges of being that Indigenous artist, not only in your community, but externally, and defying these obstacles for yourself?
Like that you called me proud, because that took a lot of work to get to that point. As an Indigenous Native American woman and living in a very racist city, I just never was built up. And, it's like a white community. Everyone's white, even in high school. So I used to dye my hair completely blonde and wear purple contacts. And so where I live, there's a lot of Indigenous women that goes kidnapped and missing and murdered. This is the capital. So there was a lot of shame and a lot of guilt growing up here. And so it really took a journey for me to own it. And now I can. And I got my name Gagapshi when I was 26. So my parents named me Ashley. And that name got me so far. It was good having like a white name to go to school. And now that I'm Gagapshi, I used to be afraid to even introduce myself as Gagapshi when I was 26, because I thought that name was too long. It would be too hard for people to say and to explain myself. And I really got to a point on my healing journey where I can own it. And so I'm really owning my art and my process and, the visions that I see. And I have some teachers in Colombia. They're like, you really need to accept that you're not normal. Like, you're special. Like, stop trying to be normal. That's not your path. And so acceptance has been a really big part of the journey of who I would love to become. And redefining myself in my life is totally creative. So like following my intention is also where I want to focus my attention, like how I want to grow, as an artist, what I want to learn, the teachers that I call into my life. It's been abundance, and so that's where I can find a lot of pride in my growth and the direction that I'm going, and it feels good.
I really appreciate your enthusiasm and somewhat your susceptibility of being able to be raw and transparent, because one of the things that I learned from you just meeting you, and it was really random, but Erica, to your point, maybe you were supposed to be at that spot at that right time, otherwise I would not have met Gagapshi. And she just kind of exuded this personality. As soon as she said something about my shoes, and we were at lunch and sitting beside each other, we were the only ones in the room, and I was working and she was like honing into what she needed to do for her offsite health retreat. And she mentioned something about my fashion, and then I mentioned about something about her fashion, and both of us connected. And I just found out that she was such a very fascinating person, and thought that her whole life that she gave me in a glimpse was really intentional for me to ask her to be part of this forum. And she's going to be, definitely, if she agrees, a returning panelist, because we can all kind of learn from your life experience. So Nicole, your customized question for 3, I had asked you, from moving between nonprofit to that of the private sector, to recently starting up your own consulting firm, and moving from Canada to that of Sarajevo, huge changes, and also being a mother, also being a wife. How do you also go through these reinvention changes? What does that experience look like for you, or has been for you?
I don't know that I've ever talked about the question that guides me when I am faced with a big decision. And that question is, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? So, in thinking about something that's new and different, and really trying to decide, does this bring me joy? Do I feel purposeful from it? Do I believe that this is going to allow me to fulfill my purpose? I also have to ask myself this question, and really, like you said, I think with regarding Erica, put those limiting beliefs in the closet, and then throw away the key. I had to say, well, am I not doing what it is I want to do because I'm afraid? What would I do if I wasn't afraid? And um, when I can answer that question confidently, I'll often sort of, with confidence, step into a new role, a new place. I'll redefine the terms of what it is that is productivity, what it is that is purposeful, what it is that is joyful for me. So when I guess, yeah, I did work in the nonprofit sector. I worked in the for-profit sector. I worked in philanthropy for quite a long time. And also went back to consulting, actually, which I'd done many years before. And then went back to consulting because in redefining productivity, it was really important for me to be able to say, productivity is not a term that lives in a way that it is totally absolute. It actually needs to be renegotiated, needs to be rethought, it needs to be subjective. So knowing that I am a parent and that I have an obligation to really support these young, amazing women coming up, that I am a partner, I am a daughter, I am someone who has a lot to offer in terms of building the capacity of nonprofits, especially social and racial justice nonprofits. But I need these things to live together. That whole package for me is me being productive. It is not my job that defines my productivity. It is not my role as a mother that defines my productivity. It's actually all these things working together in a way that makes me feel, like I said, purposeful, but also joyful, right? And whole, like spiritual. And healthy and all these other aspects of me that, you know, I cannot get only from work, and I cannot get only from parenting. I cannot get only from being a partner. So I guess that question is the thing that gives me the courage and, like I said, the fuel to choose a different path, to evolve, to do something that might be surprising, like moving to a country where I know 3 people. I do not know the language. I am still working on it. It's just a whole new universe for me. But I can ask myself, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? And if I'm not afraid, then I'm going to take the chance and I'm going to go for it.
Our next question that's personalized goes to Aisha. And I had really been interested that recently you decided to go back to school. And again, for me to think about that, I have to really sigh and go, why would I do that to myself? But at the same time, I really look to you because you're always moving forward and thrusting yourself into these challenging moments as much as Nicole has mentioned. And again, the reason why I'm very, very intentional about inviting you all individually, because I've seen you take on and showcase your strength on taking on these big challenges and milestones and being somewhat intentional about it, even though there's some subjective variables around the circumstances. So, Aisha, in the recent decision for you to go and get your master's, and as a wife and mother and a successful entrepreneur in the healthcare arena, how do you really juggle all of that and really defy the myth that a woman can't have it all?
At this point in time, I'm a certified health coach, and I run that business out of Dubai. I'm known in the community. The business is doing very well. I have been practicing now for over 4 years now, 4.5 years. But recently, I I realized that this is just not challenging enough for me. I need more challenge. I need to do something more. My ultimate goal is that I want to incorporate IT into my existing healthcare business. That's what I want to do. So maybe I want to develop an app where my clients can go and they can maybe generate meal plans, or get schedule appointments, or maybe like a panel like this that you have. Maybe I can host a panel like this in the app and have health coaches from all over the world discuss a specific topic. So that's what I'm aiming for. That it's very, very important to have support of your family and your spouse or your partner. That's very important. The reason why I say that, because coming from a Pakistani background, my husband wasn't that supportive initially, and that really affected me. The reason being because in a Pakistani household, I mean, the Pakistani mentality is such: the husband is the one who has to financially support the family. I mean, he has no choice. He has to do it. The woman is not supposed to. Obviously, there are exceptions. If your husband is not making enough money, of course, you can help out, you can work, you can pitch in. But if the husband is making enough money, and if he can support you well, he can support the children, there is no need for the wife to work. So that is the mentality that he came from. That's the traditional Pakistani mentality. And majority of the women he has come across in his life are women who, they choose not to work. And they're okay with it because their husbands are making enough money, and they're fine with it. The thing is that I do not have that traditional mentality, maybe because I lived in the West for quite some time. So when I had moved to Canada, my perspective of life completely changed. There was this one Pakistani girl, all pampered. I had led such a pampered life in Kuwait. No one had ever gone abroad to study. I don't ever think I traveled abroad ever. And then when I moved to Canada, I learned a lot about life. And then my mentality completely changed. In fact, it changed so much that to this day, it's very difficult for me to get along or see eye to eye with other Pakistani women. it's very difficult. Unless they're Pakistani women from the US or Canada or Europe, that's different. But if they're Pakistani women from the Middle East or from the subcontinent, like India, Pakistan, all these places, it's very difficult for me to see eye to eye with them because their perspective of life is very different. But over the years, I made my husband realize that working for me is not only about the finances. I mean, I understand that he's providing me, he gives me everything I need, but for me to work, it's my confidence, it's my identity, it's my self-esteem, my self-worth, everything is about me working. So me working is not about trying to chip in financially. I don't need to do that, but working for me is it creates my identity. That's how I feel. So I over the years I made him realize that, and he has realized it. It took time, and the reason was that he never went abroad to study. He has always lived in Dubai. So the women he's come across are only the women of this region. So now I have his support, and I'm so happy I have his support because pursuing your passion and doing something with the support of your family or partner or your spouse, it becomes very easy. So yeah, going back to school, it will be challenging. It won't be easy. I have to take into consideration, because I'm a perfectionist by nature. That's a big problem for me. I need to start looking at the big picture. I cannot micromanage anymore. So at this point in time, because I'm self employed, so I have a lot of time, I can give time to both my sons. I might not be able to do that when I'm pursuing my degree. So I might not be able to attend every tennis lesson or every cricket lesson. I might be busy during some weekends. So I need to understand that that will happen, and I have to be okay with that. And because I have my husband's support, I have my family's support, I think it should run smoothly. Yes, a woman can definitely have it all, but as a woman, I need to understand everything will not be perfect.
I like the fact that you reinforce balance because everyone can't put 100% in every single thing. The math doesn't work out. Again, I'm an analytics person, and so that formula does not exist. And lastly, again, not least, we have Trish, and you and I have both really spoken to our upcoming next phase in our lives, which is retirement, and looking at reinventing ourselves in that mode. I wanted to ask you because you know that my passion is in the orphanages. And so half my life is going to be spent in Egypt, nearer to the orphanages, as I help them grow businesses for themselves and deed that to them. So what does that look like for you in terms of you looking at somewhat designing that retirement phase in your life?
My husband and I are looking to retire in approximately 8 years. We actually have a timeline that we're looking at, what we're looking to do. And as Esther knows, is we're looking to move south. So somewhere in the Caribbean, maybe South America, somewhere warm with a beach and sand. So that's where we're looking to move. And that's basically what we're working towards at this stage of our lives. And him and I have talked a lot about what we would do because obviously we'll still be young enough. And my husband is very much a fisherman. Probably organize some kind of having a tour company where he buys a boat and takes fishing tours. For me, I've always had, a lot of creative passions that I've never really explored. I'm an overly practical person, and I've always been, one that's thought, taking the safe route, for lack of a better way of putting it. As I move into retirement, I will probably look to explore. I've had passions with fashion. And obviously, I was a massage therapist. I practiced as a massage therapist for years, but then due to, I guess, reasons with my fingers, my hands, and really taking a lot of stress on, even mentally at the time, it's something that I'm looking to probably pursue when I retire. I'm not sure how I'm going to incorporate all of these different things, but I'm kind of thinking to myself, I'm going to give myself or allow myself the freedom to explore all these different creative paths that I have rolling around in my head that, probably self-employment is in my future in one of those areas.
Entrepreneurship is something that we both discussed was somewhat of a scary thing. And again, learning off some of the speakers, it gives us that much more of a encouragement to know that we can even do that in retirement, is really become that entrepreneur that we always struggled to think that we could become. And so that's something that, again, I'm thinking of, but it's nice, Trish, that you're thinking of exploring that. As our exit question, as we all know, we set the stage for a gotcha question, a question that you haven't prepared. And so as we exit, I'd like to ask each of you, if you had a recipe for reinventing yourself, what would that be? I will start, and it would look something like this: a pint of my moral values, a cup of passion, a cup of my skills, and a spoonful of that audacity that I want to sprinkle into that reinvention recipe.
Aaron say what came to me was just a mix of doing the scary thing and drinking some courage juice, washing it down with some courage juice.
Yeah, I feel like anything I approach in life, I approach with a full heart. I do like to sprinkle in a little bit of a plan because I'm a planner and I have 2 kids, so I need to make sure they're taken care of. And then it's 100% passion. Just follow your heart and what makes you feel good, and what will support people in the world. And just to follow your dream. If you can tap in and dream about it, then you're good.
Thinking part passion, part joy, fulfillment. I guess a little bit of courage for me.
Cups and cups of passion, joy, and happiness, satisfaction. That's very important. What Erica said, to have a drink of courage. That's important.
Ingredients. I'm really impressed with everyone. Dose of just a teaspoon maybe of fear, because doing something that's going to challenge me is going to be good for me. This comes back to, I think, what Erica and Gagabshi were saying about knowing yourself, learning yourself, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and keeping life really interesting.
Ladies, Erica, Gagabshi, Nicole, Trish, and Aisha, I wanted to thank you for being that light for the individuals, because if we touch one person out there, that's our purpose for this channel. So thank you, ladies, and thank you out there for returning back.